I'm a bird, mother. I'm a bird.
South of Midnight bombs. Journalists show are trying to save it. This is another sweet baby flop.
What's up, space pirates? This is your Admiral, the endlessly edgy Dr. Disaster, and South of Midnight has been in its early access period now for a few days, and I have gotta say, it looks like so far I was wrong when it comes to this game.
Okay, I don't think he can say he was wrong because, again, the game is not fully out yet. Everyone should wait a little bit more to make fun of them. Just 2 more days. Wait 2 more days until you officially make fun of it.
Yeah.
And then all bets are off.
I saw the player count for it on Steam peaking at just under 500 concurrent players on its opening day, and I said that this weekend we would likely see that number go up by a decent amount because obviously the weekends are typically peak gamer hours. For once though, I was
Wrong, 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 wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong.
At the time of this
Okay.
recording on Saturday morning, you can see that the peak player count for this week
There's a few things that changed. It did go higher up. That's what I'm saying. Make fun of it. Be my guest. God knows I'm gonna be making fun of this game. But wait a little bit longer. Wait 2 more days and then rip into it.
midnight is just under their all-time peak on the day that it released. Saturday or Sunday might still change that, but it really seems that the game has virtually no momentum. Gamers aren't interested in playing as an unattractive girl boss of color for the 4,793rd
I don't think a character necessarily needs to be attractive. I do think a character needs to be likable.
time this past year, especially when it is attached to a game whose gameplay looks about as inspired as an unclean toilet.
Which is such a shame. This game, oh my god. If you look at the art they published, like the artist when they drew the concept art, it looked so inspired. It looked so interesting. But when you compare the concept art and what they actually did with the gameplay, some of the monsters still look amazing in the game. But if you compare the art versus the gameplay, it's like a wet fart. It leaves you questioning what just happened.
But this isn't for a lack of trying on part of the game journalists, who really want this game to be a success. They are using their patented method of shilling for this turd.
Don't ask questions. Just consume product and then get excited for next product.
Over on Metacritic,
That's honestly how people are acting, the consumers these days. It's just cash cows.
the game has been rated a 77 out of 100 with 66 reviews in, though on Steam, the highest rated review for the game by a wide margin is this one right here, which absolutely rips the game apart, and it comes from someone who pre-ordered South of Midnight. This person really wanted the game to succeed, and I can understand why. For a lot of folks, the gothic southern setting is exactly what they want from a game, but this
I personally, at first glance, before I looked deeper into the game, I wanted this game to be good. Really genuinely wanted this game to be good. More than half of our community was genuinely hoping this game is gonna be good.
Yeah.
Purely because of the setting. Because this is such a unique, interesting setting they picked. But did they have to make it so bland and boring? I think there's no excuse for that. I think the people who worked on the game genuinely failed.
This is probably the most level-headed and honest review that I've seen in the past few days, which we're going to look at, as well as what all these journalist shills are saying about South of Midnight. They have been trying like hell, combating the gamer sentiment against this game, but once again, we can see that nobody listens to game journalists, and this was never.
Because at this point, I think game journalism is not even a thing. Unless you're an independent writer. But even when you're independent, there's still gonna be plenty of bias to your own preferences.
A fair fight. Alright me hearties, make sure you hit the like button on this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and also, please consider supporting the channel by becoming a member. I have audiobook of a dark fantasy novel I've written, which will be available for members first in the next week or two, and there is also a space pirate cartoon called Scallywags.
What is that? I don't know why it reminds me of the very, very early concept of South Park. I don't like how consultants and companies treat minorities like me, like objects and participation trophies for doing the bare minimum. Exactly. And by the way, they don't just treat minorities as participation trophies. They make the most stereotypical quote unquote representation. They actually they say they're doing that to showcase minorities and empower them, but in reality, it's coming off as like they're the ones shitting on them.
Which I've been working on and which will also be available to members first. The thing is, I realize it's important that we not just complain about what we don't like, alternatives must be provided, so I humbly ask that you consider becoming a member of the channel, which the daily cost of doing so ends up being a fraction of the cost of your morning cup of coffee. But alright, let's look at all the reviews of South of Midnight and see what is being said about this Sweet Baby Inc. game. And what's really amusing to me as a side note is that this was, in fact, a game that was worked on by Sweet Baby, but not many people are really talking about that. It's become kind of a background characteristic of the title, but the game is still selling like shit. It just goes to show that people naturally are not inclined to play the sort of slop that Sweet Baby consults on.
Already underlined. It's also the problem that they genuinely did such a horrendous job of marketing it and even spreading awareness of this game.
Yep.
It was practically non-existent unless content creators were talking about it, and most of the content creators were talking about it in a very negative light. People who don't watch the ones who were making fun of it won't even know about this game.
People are completely repelled by that type of game. But anyhow, as I showed you before, the journalist shills are trying really hard to make sure people feel differently about a game that aligns with their
77.
worldview. They didn't rate it quite as high as something like Dragon Age the Veilguard or Assassin's Creed Shadows.
Did IGN and the typical criminals review it already? An 8.
Okay.
The vibes are immaculate. Incredible sound design and catchy lyrical music bring each other to life. Okay, you cannot say anything about the music. The music is good.
Yeah, the music is pretty good.
Well-researched detail about the American Deep South make for a compelling setting. Memorable characters leave their impact on the story. Okay, the bad. Combat doesn't match the tone of the first half of the story. The structure of the game feels repetitive. Wait. Says it's an 8, but combat doesn't match the first half of the story. That already automatically should be a 6 by default.
Yeah.
The structure of the game feels repetitive after a while. Again, that should notch down at least one more point. You are just brushing off 2 key elements of an actual game.
Shadows, giving it a 77 out of 100, but they were pretty positive in their words about it. Games Hub gave it a freaking 100 out of 100, which eliminates any last semblance of integrity or relevancy that they had. Imagine being ridiculous enough to say that this was a perfect game. But they wrote here, South of Midnight is an incredible experience and a rare fantasy adventure that grasps deeper themes wholeheartedly, telling a story that is cinematic, dynamic, beautiful, and heart-wrenching at every turn. What a wonderful world we live in. The games like South of Midnight.
Wait, South of Midnight is an incredible experience and a rare fantasy adventure that grabs deeper themes wholeheartedly, telling a story that is cinematic, dynamic, beautiful, and heart-wrenching at every turn. I don't care about it. How does the battle feel? How does the combat work? Is the combat interesting? Like, that's what I want to know. I want to know the game part. Is the game part good?
exist. Yeah, this was written by someone who desperately wanted this game to be amazing, but what they fail to acknowledge is that it is barely a game. But the person who wrote this review for Steam here also wanted the game to be good.
If the game is basically cutscenes from cutscenes, I'm sorry, by that point, just make a visual novel.
As they say in their very first sentence, keep in mind, this is someone who clearly paid for early access to the title. They not only bought the game, but paid extra to play it early, and yet they still don't have good things to say about it. And this is the highest rated review on the game thus far by a long shot. It is absolutely dripping with authenticity, which is why this sort of review is so much more appealing than what we see in the media. Anyhow, this person wrote, I really want to like this game, but sadly I don't. South of Midnight looks like a playable Leica movie. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but anyhow, the art style is fantastic. More of
Wait, what does he mean like a movie? Did I hear it right?
South of Midnight looks like a playable Leica movie. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that
It is just cutscenes mostly. I'll see it on Tuesday.
right, but anyhow, the art style is fantastic. More of this, please. I'm captivated by the world they created. I like the protagonist. I like the Southern Gothic vibes. I like looking at this world and being in it. Unfortunately, I don't really think it's all that fun to play. This is a linear, narrative-driven action platformer in the same vein as Psychonauts, Jak and Daxter, etc., but nothing to make it stand out mechanically. Nothing here is really all that unique, which might not matter if it executed its design and gameplay better. The platforming is just so rigid, and the environmental puzzles are just so uninteresting. They don't really feel like things I have to figure out, and there's no joy in executing some sort of complex maneuver you might find in other games. In other words, this sounds like it isn't a video game so much as a story.
I'm gonna have a rough time playing it, huh?
This is the gaming equivalent of Oscar bait. You know, those movies that studios put out
That just means Tuesday community movie night on stream.
that nobody watches and nobody has heard of because it's boring and uninteresting, but it still wins 14 Oscars because it pushes progressive shitlib propaganda while forgetting that it's supposed to be a movie. South of Midnight sounds like it's like that, but in gaming form. Anyhow, reading on. The puzzles are just things in the way you get through mindlessly. Move this box over here, make this platform appear, find the button prompt, find a painted ledge, get into a locked arena to fight off some enemies. It's all just so very bland and straightforward. Combat is the worst aspect of the game. Again, nothing unique, but that could have been forgiven if it were any fun. If you're going to get this game, I highly recommend knocking the game down to one of its easier difficulties. Otherwise, they're just damaged sponges whose attacks you have to dodge and button mash your way to victory.
That's interesting. So just go through the game, just go like on autopilot, get through it, and call it a day. That doesn't sound really promising.
It sounds like basically skip the story and then just walk around and look at the environment.
To me, it sounds more like the mechanical side is so flawed that to compensate the missing gaming part of the game, they made you a one hit. You're basically a one hit wonder, and you just need to continuously spam.
The one unique thing about this game is doing a finishing move to take down an enemy permanently. All it is hitting a thing until its health goes down and hitting a button prompt. However, doing this results in an awkward world freeze moment where everything around literally stops moving until you're done. It interrupts any sort of flow in combat you might have had otherwise. It's probably to give you a bit of health and speed up the cooldowns of your abilities, but you're probably not going to be using them very much anyway. It doesn't take long to see the kind of strict routine South of Midnight has for you. Platforming, combat arena, platforming, combat arena, rinse, repeat, beat game. So, it's dull gameplay followed by annoying gameplay with some charming cutscenes here and there. Compulsion Games needs to seriously rethink how they design their gameplay. I don't know if they're afraid to experiment. I don't know if this is just a creative decision, but this marks their third title with the same exact frustrating problem of cool aesthetic but boring gameplay.
Can we chalk it off to the fact that they're hiring people who don't necessarily even like video games?
Yeah.
Not necessarily even play them, but they don't even like them.
Contrast suffered from this, We Happy Few suffered from this, sadly, South of Midnight suffers from this. And yeah, this is exactly at the heart of what we are talking about when it comes to this style of protagonist in games. I don't actually care that Hazel is black or a girl or whatever. I have repeatedly made fun of the character for being ugly, but that isn't really a problem in and of itself. It simply means that the game is most likely going to suck. I can tell it won't be any fun because it wasn't made for me, and my pattern recognition has gotten to the point that whenever I see a character like this, I simply automatically assume it's going to be shit. Clearly, studios like this aren't making gameplay and fun their priority. These are people in search of accolades. They want to virtue signal, and they want the awards and praise that comes with it. So yes, the Gothic South might be a good idea for a setting, but the implementation is dog shit. But I'm gonna leave it there.
Well, again, I'm gonna just repeat the same thing. I'm very disappointed about it purely because I was extremely excited about the setting. I can excuse a lot of things, but I cannot excuse lack of actual gameplay.